Hello, all my favorite people. Welcome to the Rebel Girls podcast. I'm Kylie, and today I'm here with Dr. Laura. Dr. Laura, I'm not going to do the introductions though. I need to know where you're located, what you do, and what your preferred pronouns are, if you please.
Sure. So my name is Laura. I use either she or they pronouns, and I'm in San Diego. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. And is there another question
I
in
think
there?
I think you handled it.
Okay.
Is there anything else? Give me a fun fact while we're on it. What's one fun or exciting thing about you?
Oh my gosh. You know, I'm trying to rediscover what fun and exciting is after spending 6.5 years in grad school. So,
Ooh, yes.
yeah,
Yeah, it is such a discovery process. Before, it was probably like an extra hour of sleep was fun and exciting. But
right, right.
a
Yeah.
whole new world. I think that everyone who's listening to this, though, why don't we hit up Laura in the comments and let her know what's one fun or exciting thing that she should be doing now that grad school's over. This is an exciting time
Yes.
for you.
I need all the help I can get.
Yeah, you do. All right, buddy. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. We're really excited. I'm really excited to share your story because you have just such a fascinating background. But like with all of our great stories, we don't actually start with the current, we start with the past. So let's set the groundwork for everyone and let us know 10-year-old you thinking back, little Laura. I need three emojis that best describe her at 10.
Yeah. That was a hard one. That is a hard one. I would say probably brick wall, angry face,
Okay.
and hurt.
All right.
Yeah.
You want to dive in? Let's talk about why. What was going on?
Yeah, sure. So I grew up in a really not great situation. Things at home weren't safe, and things at school also weren't safe. I lived in a very small town in rural Eastern Oregon, and I was a brown kid in a very white um, place, and I got bullied so bad, so bad. Kids used to hit me and kick me and spit on me and call me names and like surround me on the pike. It was just awful. And I couldn't tell anybody at home because like my mom was trying to just keep things afloat, right? So there was really not anybody. So I just kind of did the best that I could with like the skills that a little kid has. And when you grow up in a family without like great emotional regulation skills, that's not very many. So
No, hard. Okay, so
yeah,
all
yeah,
those emojis make perfect sense.
yeah.
But let's talk about this school experience. Now I'm motivated. I want the name and address of every school bully you've ever known. Give me their name. I'll take care of them.
If you go back to the town, they're probably pumping gas
Okay.
or yeah.
Well, karma does certainly come around. And I think we just saw what little 10-year-old Kylie's emojis were. It's like, Xena, I'll take care of business. Well, okay, so we had a tough experience in school. You said that you were the only, I'm going to repeat just the words that you used just for
Yeah.
context. You were the only brown kid. You only
Um,
kid do you feel like your experience was primarily racially motivated or was it something else?
So I wasn't the only, but I could probably count on one hand the number of not white kids in my school. So, um, yeah, I would say racially motivated by the slurs that they used, and even comments that parents would make, like adults just saying really unkind things to me, like a little first grader, like,
What does that word even mean?
right, what is wrong with you?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm so sorry to hear that that was your experience. Thinking just about life and how things kind of progress. Do you feel like in that part of the world where you're from, things have evolved? Because like I unfortunately had a similar experience. It wasn't a race-based thing, it was the gay thing. Everybody had something to say about the gay thing. And though some of the community has certainly progressed forward, I cannot say that all of them have. How about on your end? Is your community kind of
Yeah,
doing
I would say the same. The
yeah.
same. Yeah, like my mom still lives there, and I think in the past 25 years I've been home twice. And one
Wow.
of those was for my grandmother's funeral. So, yeah.
Okay. All right. So we're out of there and we're not looking forward to going back anytime soon, is what I'm hearing.
No,
You
I might actually go back to my 30th, um, the year that I should have graduated reunion, just so like I can just be like, yeah.
Yeah, and if you need an escort to that, you let me know and I'll come take care of those bullies for you.
Okay. I'm not so worried about them anymore, but
I don't blame you. I don't think you should be. Okay, so here you are, this kid who had kind of a rough situation going on at home, at school. I can only assume that there felt like there was probably a lot of pressures, right? Now, a lot of what we do on this show is talk about societal pressures and expectations from like
Mhm.
the outside that we feel while we're going through our youth and our adolescence. So, is there anything that really kind of stood out to you, a way that you were supposed to be or act, perhaps?
White, whatever that means,
Right,
right?
right.
Um, I didn't really have a lot of friends like Shock. And so I just kind of ended up going with anybody who would accept me. And, the crowds that I ended up hanging out with later were not really great. But I guess as far as expectations, like I grew up in the 80s and 90s. So, like, very much what you saw in the movies with the Brat Pack and, all of the cliques. And that was the social expectation, right, is that you fit into one of these groups.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So what you were you kind of like the outcast group? Where did little Laura
Oh,
fall?
for sure. For
Yeah.
sure. For
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
In my experience, I was also like outlier, very
Mhm.
shy. I felt most comfortable like reading my books by myself. Like I'd be outside in nature by myself. What did you do? Was it a
Yeah.
good experience that you kind of felt these pressures, or was it not so good on
Mm.
your
Mm. Well, also like you, I was very much into books because I don't know what your reasoning was, but mine was to escape and be literally anywhere but where I was, right?
end?
Because
Mhm.
my world sucked.
Yeah.
And so very much into books. And then around junior high-ish, high school, then I started hanging out with maybe a little rougher crowd. And um, I built up some pretty thick skin. And I can have a big mouth, believe it or not. Yeah,
Oh,
I know, right?
okay.
Shock, shock. And so, I was talking pretty big and was able to kind of push people away and keep from getting bullied anymore. I wouldn't say that I necessarily turned into the bully, but I could definitely keep people out of my way if I needed to.
Yeah, keep your distance because if they're
Yeah,
this far away, then they're close enough, right?
right, 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 for sure.
Cool. All right. All right. So we have a kid who's feeling pretty much like they're not really belonging and doesn't
Mhm.
really fit in. Thinking about, you get through that high school phase of life and you're looking at careers and you don't have maybe a lot of direction. How did this all influence all of these things that were coming in from the outside and impact your decisions as you move
Sure,
towards the future?
sure.
Because you got out. What happened? What was the
Yeah,
shift?
yeah. I dropped out of high school, the middle of my 10th grade year, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, so by the end of the first semester, I was getting like all A's and maybe a few B's. And then the middle of the second semester, I was failing everything because I just quit going. And yeah, I just quit going.
Okay.
Um, and I ended up getting my GED and moving to Portland. Yeah, so much better. Um, and I got legally emancipated. Um, and was working like 3 different jobs and doing all of the things to like adult because I was in such a hurry to do that, right?
Right.
And I got burnt out because I was like 16, 17 with like a full-time job and a part-time job and doing all of the things and paying rent, and like adulting sucks, right?
Yes. To
Yeah.
all of our young listeners, take note of that one. Adulting just sucks.
See, sometimes it just really does, right? Yeah. And so I actually ended up going to community college.
Cool. Good.
And I was there for a while, and one of my roommates was talking to a Navy recruiter, and I went with him one day as a joke, And like 21 years later, I guess that the joke maybe was on me. Um, yeah,
So with military,
right. I did. Yes.
and Navy to boot. Well, as a sea lover myself, I think you picked the best branch
Oh,
personally.
of course. Me
Of
too.
course.
Of course.
All the other branches, I apologize for the loss, but you lost here. So here you are. I know that so frequently, if we could just roll back for a second, there's often this assumption, right? That if kids drop out of school, if they kind of hang with the wrong kids, then they're themselves bad kids. But it sounds
Mhm.
like you were doing everything that you could do to be independent and be successful in the life that you kind of hoped for yourself. Do you feel like that's kind of more what you were doing at the time?
Yeah, well, looking at the lens that I get to see through now, I was doing the best I could with the skills that I had at that time.
Yeah. Good.
So it's really easy to judge ourselves harshly, right? But we were different people and we had different skills, and you know, it was different.
It was different. Now, anyone listening right now, if you could please like remind yourself that that phrase that she just said, we were doing the best with the skills that we had. That needs to be bolded. I wish there was a bolded way to do this technology thing because it's so true. We oftentimes look back and we pass judgment, but you were doing the best you could, and it seems like it worked out pretty well for you. Do
Yeah,
you think?
yeah, I think that I would not be where I am today and who I am today if I had not experienced the struggles that I have in my life.
Right.
So, yeah.
So on a joke, ha ha ha, we
Right,
join, we go to the Navy office.
right, right.
We end up, you said 21 years,
Yeah,
correct? Well,
like 2 weeks shy, but I just round up.
okay, I feel like that's fair.
Right,
After,
right,
that seems
right.
fair. Well, first, thank you so much for your service. Now
Thank
let's talk about that experience because that's a long time. That's not a small commitment. So
you.
explain to us, what was your experience like in the Navy? Because women, we're not meant to be warriors, I'm told. But I mean, you've kind of been there, done that. From sounds.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, I did. I would say in the 90s and in the early 2000s, things were very, very different. And I can't imagine, what the women who went before me experienced, because I know the kind of stuff that I had to deal with. And sailors are just
Sailors.
right.
They're just
Yeah,
sailors.
right. Right. And definitely like the boys will be boys mentality. And yeah, I mean, it was gross. There were a lot of things that were just gross and like just really not okay. And when I went to my first ship, women had only been able to go on combatants for, geez, just a few years. So yeah, yeah, it was a whole thing. And also, like during this time, is don't ask, don't tell gets implemented, right? So that was super fun too. Right.
Ah, okay. So, to anyone who's not watching, just listening right now, there's a certain look that we're getting. Like, oh, it was. So, what was the deal with don't ask, don't tell? Like, it, how did that impact you, if you don't mind sharing?
Oh, um, in so many ways. And I get emotional about this because um, was such it was such a terrible thing for so many people, right? There's just this constant fear of being found out. The wrong person saw you out with someone or doing something that they thought looked any kind of certain way. Like it was scary. And I was actually watching reruns of the other day, and
Yes.
earlier this weekend, there was the part where Tasha
Mm-hmm.
is there, and she's military, right? And then there's like all of the stuff with her command, and I just had such a visceral reaction. Like, oh my God, I remember what that feels like. And I haven't felt that for so long, but feeling that, I'm like, oh my God, like Laura, you lived with that for years and years and years.
Right.
Like, no wonder your nervous system is shot, right? Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
I think a lot of times, especially with people who perhaps didn't serve
Mhm.
or maybe a little bit younger, we do have some younger listeners here. They don't understand really the magnitude of or the implications of don't
Yeah.
ask, don't tell. So for those of you who are unfamiliar, like you don't ask them if you're gay, and there's not going to be an issue. But there kind of was if you got,
Okay.
so to speak.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what was the worst case scenario if someone was found out to be? What would that look like?
Um, I lost 3 friends to suicide under Don't Ask, Don't Tell. One was being separated because it was discovered that he was gay. Another one was having some mental health problems and could not be honest, could not get the help that she needed. And another one, in her note, talked about just like, I can't live like this in hiding all of the time anymore, and the conflict between the military, and then there was also some religious stuff in there too. And unfortunately, like every queer person I know from that time has similar stories of loss. Yeah.
I am so incredibly sorry for the loss of your friends. It's really sad that such an impact could be could be had by an institution that is supposed to be helping, right?
Mhm.
Because ultimately, the military service, like you're here to protect and serve, and that's the
Mhm.
idea. But then to have such negative repercussion because of the fears based in that institution,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's really challenging to swallow. So, thinking about people as a whole, and remind me, I can't remember for the life of me, and I apologize for not looking up.
Yeah.
Don't ask, don't tell. What year was it overturned? What year did they get rid of it? Do you remember?
2010?
Yes,
Was
right
it 20?
around there. Yeah, it was early 2000s though.
Yeah.
Early 2000s. So in the early 2000s, if my math does me correctly, you have left the service already or are about to.
No, I retired in 2018.
2018. Okay. So this law changes. Well, how does this impact your
Sure.
experience as an individual in the military or just as an individual as a whole?
Well, all of the things, right? So, um, I was on all kinds of like diversity committees and like leading all of these different things for like as diverse as we could be, in the military, and helping with equal opportunity, as equal opportunity as the military can be. So I'm very plugged in with those things and doing the best that I could, to help, at least help other people not have the kind of experiences like that I had growing up. Um, and then when the repeal was announced, um, I immediately like got on the training team that went and provided implementation. Like, this is how we're going to implement the repeal of this policy to all of the region senior Navy leadership. So then after it was finally repealed, I was like, I'm not going to be in the closet ever again. Never. Yeah.
And there it is, a magical moment where we started to live more authentically. So,
Yes.
do you feel like that was the turning point for you where it was like, I can't, I'm going to be me?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so I knew so many people who were afraid to come out, even though, Don't Ask, Don't Tell had just been repealed.
Mhm.
And I'm kind of a rebel a little bit. Yeah. And I have a big mouth, and not, I'm really good at standing up for other people. I'm
Yeah.
learning how to do better for learning how to stand up for myself. Um, and so, well, if you're not going to, I'm going to, right? Because everybody needs a role model.
Yeah.
Everybody needs to see, okay, this is possible. And like I was fairly senior. And actually, and I when I was stationed in Washington and on a submarine base. So it's not like there were a lot of women running around anyway. And so in these senior leadership meetings, oftentimes I was the only woman in the room. Yeah. Oh my God, that's like for so much of my career, the only woman in the room. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. So
Wow. So here you are, motivated to live more authentically. One part, would you say it's one part you, one part for the people around you who looked up to you? Yeah.
yeah, I think so. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, they're very lucky to have you as a role model. I can only imagine how impactful that was. Now, talk to me really briefly. So you put 21 years in. That's not a small amount of time.
Yeah.
And you're saying the majority of your time you were the only woman uh, in the decision making table or at the decision making
Mhm.
table.
Oftentimes. Yeah.
How did that? How was your experience? Do you feel like different from your male peers? Was it, and how could it have been better, made better by the service?
Sure. Um, I think that well, over the years, it just continues to get better. But like the misogyny was so strong back in the 90s. And like I said, I can't even imagine what it was like before that. Um, I think that you have to be a part of the change, and you have to use your voice. Um, and usually, we're not the only person in the room who feels a certain way, but oftentimes people are afraid to speak up. And it just takes sometimes just that one person.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, that one person
that
sometimes.
one person. So that was oftentimes me because big mouth, right?
A great mouth, a great mouth.
Right, right.
Okay, so here we are. We've done the military thing. We come out. We're being our authentic selves. But so much has changed even since then because you were until 2018. But now I have the pleasure of being able to introduce you as Dr. Laura. So tell
Yeah,
us, what has the journey been, both personally and professionally, since we got out of the service?
sure. I finished my associates and my bachelor's and my first master's while I was in the military. And my first master's degree is in strategic communication, and that's what I did in the military. And I did not want to do that when I got out. I was just so fried. Um, and so then I'm like, well, what do I want to do? And I just kind of did some reflection about, well, what are the times where I felt the happiest or the most fulfilled? Well, it was when I was like helping other people. By the time that I retired, like I would have sailors like waiting outside my door just to come and talk to me. I wasn't a therapist or a counselor, but they could talk to me. And so I was like, I bet I could do that. And so I applied to grad school and I got accepted, and I got another master's degree, this time uh, in marriage and family therapy. And I felt like I'm not done learning. There's more, right? The journey wasn't, I hadn't reached my destination yet,
Right.
right? And so then I did my doctorate. So like literally drop out to doctor. That's me.
So, for those of you who are listening, just because the academic past might be a little rocky, it's never too rocky when you have a goal in mind. So, you went ahead, you finished your doctorate. Tell me about what your big dissertation. What was the topic of study for you? Because it was in psychology, I believe.
Yes, yes, yes. My doctorate is in psychology. I have a PsyD. A lot of people think like PhD, but
Mhm.
that's philosophy. Philosophy. PsyD is psychology. Um, so my dissertation was on the experiences of trans and non-binary adolescents in family therapy.
And now talk to us. So now talk to us. What are we doing with such a specialized body of knowledge? Because that, I mean, right now we've seen across the nation how now more than ever kids are needing support to
Yeah,
navigate these really challenging topics. Tell us, how are you helping with those initiatives?
sure. Well, I'm in the middle of writing, transforming. I'm not sure what the right word is. Creating a journal article for publishing out of the findings from my dissertation, which unfortunately, but really not unsurprisingly, were pretty heartbreaking.
Would you mind sharing what a major takeaway from that body of research was?
Sure. There were really like two kind of key areas, like the affirming and non-affirming things that the parents were doing, and the affirming and non-affirming things that the therapists were doing.
Okay.
Yeah. And so the affirming, like the most affirming things were like not rocket science, right? Like, duh, use people's names, use their chosen names,
Right.
and their pronouns, their correct pronouns.
Right.
And that was not happening largely, right? But then also I heard multiple instances of where parents were like actively attacking the child in the therapy room, and then experiences of where like the therapist jumped on board and were like also being exhibiting hostility toward the teens as well. And I'm like, wait, what is wrong with you?
Right.
What
Right.
is wrong with you? And some of the other findings did just kind of support what limited research is already out there, and really therapists are not adequately trained on how to work with queer folks,
Right. Yeah.
and trans folks in particular.
Oh, well, this sounds like such an amazing study, and I'm so glad that you're pursuing publication with this. I make sure you let me know when it's published so I can read it,
Yeah,
okay?
yeah,
And
of course.
everybody's going to check in on you to make sure that you're putting that work in to get this out there because this is necessary information.
Yeah,
So we're doing publication, but it's also my understanding we're not just like hanging out with degrees on our wall, just enjoying
no,
tea and crumpets. You're doing a lot of other work, right? Well, tea and crumpets. Where did I even come up with
I,
so what's our day gig now these days, Dr. Laura?
yeah, I actually just opened my own private practice.
And what's the name
Um,
of that practice?
yeah,
Let us know how. So, are we specializing in trans and non-binary youth? Why would someone come to see you?
yeah. I The name of my practice is Affirming Journeys Family Counseling, and I provide affirming therapy for the LGBTQIA plus community, for teens and adults in relationships or romantic relationships, and then also in their family relationships. And so I specialize in the queer community, and then also in healing from trauma, including narcissistic abuse.
Wow. So, certainly a very diverse offering that you're able to support people with and through. Now, thinking about your military roots, would you feel comfortable supporting families that maybe had a connection to the military or something of that sort?
Oh yeah, I have I have so many clients who are
Yeah.
either in the military currently, or have served in the military, or are the child of a military person. Like, I live in San Diego, so it's like you spit and you're going to hit a sailor probably, right? So,
Probably true. Probably true. Well, Dr. Laura, I got to know then, if someone was interested, maybe they listened to your podcast and they were like, oh, geez, this lady seems kind of, I could talk to this person. Could they? How could they connect with you? Are we taking clients? What are we doing here?
yeah, I'm taking new clients. You can go to my website, affirmingjourneyscounseling.com, And you can learn a little bit more about what I do. You can learn a little bit more about me and the services that I provide. And then there's also a little button up there where you can contact me.
Awesome.
And yeah, and then I will either email you or call you back depending on what it is that you prefer. And um, I also offer free 15-minute phone call consultations. So regardless of whether people decide to come to me for therapy or not, like please, please, please interview any potential therapists,
Yes.
right? If you the therapeutic relationship, the rapport that you're able to have with your therapist, finding that right fit is essential for you to do the work that really you need to do. And it's okay, like, not every therapist is going to be the right fit for every client. Not every client is going to be the right fit for every therapist, and that's okay. And if you're not a right fit, in my opinion, ethically, ethically, that therapist who is telling you, I don't think that we're a good fit, should be should be giving you a couple of referrals for maybe some places that might be a better fit.
Okay. All right. Well, you heard it here, folks. If you're looking for an opportunity to, we'll call it test drive, a
Sure.
new therapist,
Yeah.
Dr. Laura, you can hook her up with her for 15 minutes for free, and that's such amazing an amazing opportunity. That's so kind of you to allow people the chance, because you're right. You do need to have that
Mhm.
fit. If it's not there, it's not there. So I'm so happy and so hopeful that the people listening to this will take on this opportunity, because it is really quite fantastic, if you ask me. All
Awesome.
right. I've got one more question, Dr. Laura.
Yeah.
Here we are. You're a kid that came from a not very ethnically diverse, seemingly pretty hateful community.
Mhm.
You were able to get yourself out of there. You had a really impressive, but also stressful, I imagine, career given the
Yeah.
circumstances in the Navy, with Don't Ask, Don't Tell, and all of that. You got out of there. You now have a thriving business and are specializing in helping LGBTQ people, which are
Mhm.
the same people that you advocated for in the past. Now
Yeah.
that's a pretty good summary statement for a storyline. So for someone who's maybe experiencing the hardships, those
Yeah.
down moments, not the peaks. We everyone kind of can enjoy the peaks, but what would you say to someone who was maybe going through a similar situation in those low points? What
Yeah.
would you encourage them to maybe think of when they're trying to get through?
It gets better. And I know that's kind of like the Trevor Project's motto, right? Is it but it really does. No matter what you're going through, probably not alone. Find your kind of weirdos, because we all have something that's maybe a little bit odd or a little bit weird about us.
Sure.
And yeah, and then I guess maybe the other piece, for maybe people who are a little bit older, be the person you needed.
Be the person you needed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. That's a fantastic one. Well, Dr. Laura, thank you again so very much for sharing your story of authenticity here at Rebel Girls. For anyone who is hoping to connect with Dr. Laura, remember it's Affirming Journeys Counseling. You can go ahead and Google that or hit the link in the bio. And until next time, everyone, you keep being that rebel I know you are.